Welcome to Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in San Diego today, joined by Mark Kersey. He's a member of the San Diego City Council, and you are also active in the California League of Cities, the National League of Cities, and the National League had a conference in D.C. a few weeks back. You went, you spoke with some folks in the White House. What can you tell us about the mood generally with locals vis-a-vis the new federal administration?
Well, it's evolving, and that is something that we're trying to get in there and press the case for cities, right? Because the bulk of California, the bulk of really the nation lives in an urban or suburban environment around a big city. And that's something that we want to make sure that the feds understand as they're making budgetary decisions, policy decisions, that they understand the needs of cities in servicing the citizens of the country.
Do you feel as if they heard you? And I ask that in the context of looking at the political landscape. I mean, look, it's undeniable that Mr. Trump did very well in kind of rural, ex-urban areas. I'm not going to say that he's not going to support our cities and our states, but, politics plays a part, and we're in California, and relations are a little touchy. I think it's fair to say.
Well, certainly, our state legislature has decided to go on the offensive and really go after him. And I think that was part of our message as well, is that, we're not looking for a combative relationship here. We are looking for solutions that make sense for our residents. We hope that the federal government can be a partner in those solutions on something like infrastructure, for example, which I've taken a particular interest in my 4.5 years on the city council. And actually, when we were in Washington, I moderated a panel specifically about infrastructure at the National League of Cities conference. And so that was the message I took to the White House, was that, look, this is something that I think that we've got fairly broad bipartisan consensus that our nation's infrastructure is broken. It needs additional investment. We can have a robust discussion about the best way to do that investment, but this is not a partisan issue.
And let's talk about that, because there is no doubt that candidate Trump on multiple occasions talked about his desire to invest in infrastructure. We don't know how that's going to play out with the Congress. We're just seeing rumblings of a federal budget. But if we take him at his word, I mean, we in California, we need infrastructure spending. You know better than I. Our state roads need $59 billion worth of work. Our local roads, $78 billion worth of work. These are dire times, and boy, could we use some federal funds.
We could, absolutely. And the whole nation is in this predicament. I mean, California, it's magnified because we're so large, but the entire country has this issue. I mean, the American Society of Civil Engineers came out with a report card recently, gave our national infrastructure a cumulative D+, which is not a grade anybody wants. So, and that's why I think it's good to have someone like the president talking about infrastructure. Because frankly, we haven't heard that much about it from a lot of politicians recently, which is part of the reason why it's in the bad state that it's in.
Right. You mentioned California being so large. Another study came out. It's called the TRIP study. It says California has 4 of the top 5 worst conditions in areas with populations over 500,000. So it just gets worse and worse. So, look, I'm wondering, what can you do, what can San Diego do, what can California do to kind of continue pushing that conversation? Because, look, talk is great, but we need action.
No, we need action. I mean, you look at the state legislature, they had an entire special section specifically dedicated to transportation funding last year.
Still
it lasted
going.
a year.
Still going.
The special session ended, actually.
Oh, did it?
They didn't do anything.
I thought it was still going on.
And so they reintroduced, with the new legislative session, they reintroduced a couple of the bills that were going to address this. And the governor put a deadline on. The legislature has their own things, that ways that they work through it. So we'll see what happens. But when it comes down to it, we need the state to be focused on it, the feds to be focused on it, because there's not one solution here. I think that's what's important everybody keep in mind. There is not, one local solution or one state or one federal. It is going to take a combined effort on the part of all of these entities to make this happen.
Let's talk about state solutions before we get to county or city solutions, because I do want to go there. On the state side, like you said, we've been in special session on and off for a couple of years. Who knows if we'll go back on. There's been a lot of talk about the gas tax. And what we know about the gas tax is it hasn't increased in California since '94. We have inflation, we have electric vehicles, we have hybrid vehicles. I don't know who loves increasing taxes, but it's a discussion point. What do you make of this conversation about should we look at the gas tax and whether to increase it to fund road repairs?
Well, I think the trouble with relying on the gas tax is that the government is simultaneously mandating that we all drive more fuel-efficient vehicles. And so now you're talking about relying on a funding source that we know by definition is going to decline in usage and revenues over the next several decades. So I think that we really need to re-examine just the way that we pay for all of our transportation funding.
What about toll roads? We know there are a few in San Diego, more HOV types of tolls.
Right.
Orange County has them. LA County is just starting to get them. You think that's a way to fund infrastructure projects?
I think that that things like that can make sense depending on how they're rolled out. There's an argument to be said that the people using for an asset should be the ones paying for it rather than society at large, right? And I can tell you that just being on my district kind of has the 15 freeway running through the middle of it, and so those managed HOV lanes that you can have the electronic fast pass beeper linked to your credit card, and if you want to not sit in traffic, you pay a couple of bucks, right?
Some folks would argue, but wait a sec, those are Lexus lanes. Only the wealthy can use that. How would you respond? I mean, I know what you're in it, but what are your thoughts on that?
The response is actually pretty easy, and that is all of that traffic that is now choosing to pay a few bucks to drive in those lanes, that's traffic that's not in the general lanes, right? So those people get to work a little bit quicker, and they're now not part of this other problem.
There are also discussions about completely changing the way that we fund infrastructure projects, and that is vehicles, miles, traveled. And look, there are a lot of things we can say about it, but basically there would be some type of device put on your odometer, and you'd see how many miles you drive, and you would be taxed based upon that. No gas tax, I don't know, no registration fee, whatever it may be.
Sure.
There are privacy questions, but what do you make of that, sir?
I think it's an interesting program, and they're piloting it right now at the state. I think that report is going to come out sometime this summer, so I really look forward to reading it. I have the privacy concerns as well, so I think that first and foremost has to be what's addressed. And then I think there are other kind of technical questions, right? So we get, something in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 million tourists to San Diego every year. And a good chunk of those are driving, right? So let's say they're driving in from out of state, and the state they're driving from doesn't participate in that program. How do you log those miles if they don't have that little meter?
Good point.
There may be a way that they're looking at to do it, but I haven't heard what that is yet.
I want to talk about local solutions. In November, the counties of both Los Angeles and San Diego, and other counties as well, but we'll take those two, had measures on their ballots to increase sales tax for transportation funding purposes. Our friends in Los Angeles voted yes. Our friends in San Diego, where we are today, voted no. And so it did need 2/3, and that's a tough margin. But what do you make of that? Because, local solutions can be the easiest.
Well, first of all, I'd point out that the voters of San Diego County twice have actually voted to do just that, right? With the original Transnet proposal, and then the second one that was passed back in 2004, which was a renewal program. Voters have said that, look, we are willing to open up our wallets for a reasonable amount of local transportation projects. I think that Measure A, which was on the ballot in November, was fatally flawed in a number of ways. And I think that when you saw that both groups on the right and groups on the left were opposed, you knew something was wrong, and they were going to have a real tough time to get into 2/3.
So do you have a sense that maybe coalitions will build back up to do a better version of, we'll call it Measure A?
I get the sense that will certainly be discussed. I know that those talks have started already. What that will look like, there's been a number of different proposals, ways that you could maybe split up the county and have different measures in different parts of the county. Maybe one in North County that's more freeway focused, and one in Central and South County that's more transit focused. We'll see. That's one idea. We'll see if it works.
He is Mark Kersey. He's a member of the San Diego City Council. My name is Brad Pomerance in San Diego today. This is Local Edition.